Hi everybody, Bunny Berry here. Today I am thrilled and filled with joy to be able to bring you into my kitchen where I am going to share with you how I make raw cultured vegetables. I learned about making raw cultured vegetables when I read The Body Ecology Diet by Donna Gates, and since I read that book I have been adding more cultured drinks and cultured foods into my diet, which has been helping immensely with my candida overgrowth and a whole host of other symptoms that I believe were candida or are candida related that I'm healing from, including feelings of sadness and depression, fatigue. All of those things I'm actually feeling better. And also, my topical candida, having great success in alleviating the symptoms from that. So I'm going to show you how to make cultured veggies. Let's get started. First, I wanted to show you some vegetables that actually I canned them on May the 10th. So that was about 2 weeks ago. And this is a mixture of red cabbage and celery and cucumber, which I flavored with dill. And I also used the same dill brine to make okra, cultured okra. And I had some of this okra today for lunch. And let me tell you, I'm a huge fan of pickled okra. I mean, you could buy me a big jar of pickled okra from the grocery store. I could eat the whole thing in one sitting. And the ones that I made myself in my own kitchen using the method that Donna Gates, and you could also find it, the same type of method in Nourishing Traditions or around the web on how to lacto-ferment vegetables and culture vegetables. I had wonderful luck making my pickled okra taste just as delicious as the ones you'd find in the grocery store, but they're not cooked. So all the nutrition is still packed into these little babies, and with the added benefits of probiotics. We're going to start out here with glass jars that have lids. These are your typical Ball or Kerr canning jars. You want to make sure that they are clean and sanitized. What I do is actually run them through the dishwasher with a load of dishes before I start this process. Right now I am experimenting with pint-sized jars because I sort of have a little bit of food ADD. I don't like to eat the same thing day in and day out. So I've been experimenting with making small batches so that if it's something that turns out that I'm not really crazy about, I can give it away to other people. Maybe they'll like it. I've actually been able to give jars away to my family so that I can add more probiotics into their diet. Sneaky, sneaky. Just tell them to put it in the refrigerator once it's been on your shelf for a couple of weeks, and it'll last in the refrigerator for I would say about 2 months refrigerated. So I've been using pint-sized jars, but certainly you can make bigger batches if you know this is a recipe that you absolutely love, and you can stick it in your fridge and just keep eating out of it to your heart's delight. But right now I'm using pint-sized jars. And now let's go over our list of ingredients. For this particular batch, I am going to use some kale, cabbage, which is really an awesome, standby, good old standard for fermenting. I'm going to use some carrots, which the bacteria are going to love. They're going to eat all of the sugar from those carrots and make them nice and healthy and leave me the good fiber and a little bit of a sweet taste. And I'm going to use cucumber. As my starter, I'm actually going to be using Yo Gourmet Kefir Starter. I have ordered some of Donna Gates' starter, but it hasn't come in yet. And so I was reading in Nourishing Traditions. Nourishing Traditions recommends that you use whey and salt to do the same process. So I thought, well, my kefir starter actually has a little bit of 2% dried milk in it. So it basically becomes a simulated whey. So I'm using my kefir starter. If you don't have any kefir starter, you don't have any whey, or you don't have any vegetable culture starters, you can also just use like 2 tablespoons of salt, and that will get the fermentation process started as well. Since I'm using more of Donna Gates' technique, I don't add salt to the actual batch. I add salt when I'm eating it. So you won't see any salt being put into the batch itself. And then I am going to be using dill in my brine to flavor it. And I have a little bit of basil that's kind of past its prime, and so I'm going to throw that in there for flavor. So this is kind of what I'm going to be using as the base for my cultured vegetables this time. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of water and put the kefir starter into the water so that it can start to wake up. All my little bacteria can start to wake up. And now I'm going to chop up my vegetables however I want to fit them into my jars. I have my vegetables all ready. So I shredded the carrots and I shredded the cabbage, mainly because the shredder attachment happened to be on my food processor. I took the kale and actually de-stemmed it and then cut it into small pieces, and then I kind of chunked up the cucumber and left it in bigger pieces. And you'll notice that I left some of my cabbage leaves. You're going to want to use these outer leaves to help pack tightly, to add a little package, add a little nice little neatly wrapped package to the top of your jars. Now over here in the Vitamix, I am starting to make my brine. So I have got all of the stems from my kale. I have my dill and basil. And then I can take and add a little bit of my cabbage. Just add a little bit in there. And I'm also going to add a little bit of kale, leafy kale. And then I'm going to put lots of water in this. And this is going to actually be the brine that I use to moisten the vegetables before I start packing them into the jars. So the first batch I want to make, I want to do a kale and carrot cucumber combination. So I'm going to take some of my carrots and add them into the kale. Start tossing that around, mixing it up nicely, and add cucumbers into it. And then I'm going to mix this by hand until it's all nice and mixed up. Or you can use, of course, your salad tongs or whatever you want. But this is basically what one of my cultured veggie mixes is going to be this week. You can see what I have here now is like a salad. It's a salad that you would eat. It's dry. So what we want to do is now start adding liquid to it. Some people like their cultured veggies wetter. Some people like them more dry. But in any case, we are going to add some starter to it. I'm going to add about 1/3 of the starter. And then I'm going to add some brine. Just pour the juice in there, and I'm going to mix it up. Take my tongs, start mixing it up, get it nice and moist. I'm really pressing down as hard as I can and getting those veggies packed down in the jar, and then adding liquid. Adding a little bit of liquid and packing it. And as you can see, I've got a nice packed jar, which I'm going to fill up right about to this rim with vegetables and juice. And then I'm going to neatly fold part of a cabbage leaf right on top and then put my lid on. You do need to leave the room at the top because the vegetables and the juice are going to expand as they begin to ferment. So I'm taking my little cabbage leaf And I'm going to press it in here just to kind of take up airspace. Fill this at the top. But basically I'm using this leaf to fill up space in my jar. And the vegetables are actually stopping right at about that line. Now I have one jar completed, and you can see the vegetables shouldn't really be able to move around in the jar. When I tilt it around, the vegetables should pretty much stay in place. I did want to add one other helpful tip. When you put your jars wherever you're going to leave them to ferment, go ahead and put a layer of paper towels underneath them in case it does expand and some of the liquid leaks out of the jar. Then you won't have, a purple or green mess to clean up. It'll be right